The lawyer had just finished reading the will when the chapel doors flew open. Everyone turned. 50 people in black, tissues clutched in hands, grief etched into faces. My mother-in-law's casket sat at the front of the room, surrounded by white lilies and flickering candles. And walking down the aisle, alive as the day I'd married him, was my husband Daniel, the same Daniel whose body I'd identified at the morgue 3 months ago, the same Daniel whose ashes I'd scattered off the pier last Tuesday, surrounded by his sobbing family, the same Daniel who was supposed to be dead. He looked directly at me and smiled. Time 04s. Surprise, sweetheart. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't process what my eyes were showing me. His mother's lawyer, a silver-haired man named Patterson who'd been reading the will with appropriate solemnity, dropped his papers and they scattered across the floor like leaves. Daniel's father made a sound I'd never heard a human make before, something between a scream and a sob. His sister fainted, actually fainted, sliding off the pew onto the floor while her husband scrambled to catch her. And I just sat there, frozen, watching my dead husband walk toward me with that smile I used to love. 3 months. I'd spent 3 months as a widow. I'd planned his memorial service, picked out the urn, written the eulogy that made his mother cry so hard she couldn't stand. His mother, Margaret, had died 2 weeks after we scattered Daniel's ashes. Heart attack, they said. Grief, they said. She'd been so devastated by losing her only son that her heart simply gave out. I'd held her hand in the hospital, watched the light leave her eyes, promised her I'd take care of the family. And now her son was standing in front of me, very much alive, while her body lay in a casket 10 feet away. Time 0 hours. What? My voice came out as a croak. How? Daniel's smile widened. He looked good, rested, tanned, even, like he'd been somewhere warm while I was planning funerals and crying myself to sleep. We need to talk, he said, privately, about the will. That's when it clicked. Margaret had changed her will the day before she died. She'd left everything to me. The house, the investments, the family business. $4.7 million in total. I'd been confused by it, touched, overwhelmed with grief and gratitude. Now I understood. Daniel had faked his death. He'd collected the life insurance. He'd let his own mother die of grief. And he'd come back the moment he learned I'd inherited everything he thought should be his. I looked at his smug face. Then I looked at the 2 police officers sitting in the back row, the ones I'd called that morning when I found the burner phone in Margaret's jewelry box. The phone that had changed everything. Actually, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, I think I'm the one with the surprise. Let me back up, because you need to understand how I ended up in that chapel, staring at a ghost who wanted my money, with evidence in my purse that would send him to prison. My name is Olivia Hartwell. I'm 31 years old. I work as a physical therapist at a rehabilitation center, helping people recover from injuries and surgeries. It's not glamorous work, but it's meaningful. I make decent money, enough to live comfortably, not enough to be anyone's target. Or so I thought. I met Daniel Whitmore 7 years ago at a charity run. I was there to support a patient who was determined to finish despite a recent knee replacement, and Daniel was there because his company had sponsored the event. He crossed the finish line right behind my patient, both of them gasping and laughing. Afterward, he introduced himself, asked about my work, and listened like every word mattered. Daniel was handsome in that classic American way. Tall, broad shoulders, easy smile. He came from money but didn't act like it. His family owned Whitmore Construction, a company his grandfather had built from nothing during the post-war boom. By the time Daniel's generation came along, Whitmore Construction was worth millions. They built commercial properties, shopping centers, office complexes. The Whitmore name meant something in our city. Daniel was supposed to take over the company eventually. He was being groomed for it, his mother said, learning the business from the ground up. What I didn't know, what no one knew, was that Daniel had been bleeding the company dry for years. Gambling, bad investments, schemes that were always going to pay off big and never did. By the time we got married, he was already in too deep to climb out. He just needed a new plan. And that plan, apparently, was me. We dated for 2 years before Daniel proposed. He was everything I thought I wanted: attentive, romantic, successful. He remembered anniversaries, surprised me with flowers for no reason, told me every day how lucky he was. His family welcomed me immediately. Margaret treated me like the daughter she'd always wanted. She'd lost a baby girl to SIDS 30 years earlier, Daniel's older sister, who would have been named Elizabeth. I think Margaret saw something of that lost child in me. She told me once, near the end, that I was the best thing that ever happened to her son. I didn't know then how right she was, or how much that would cost her. We got married at the Whitmore estate. Beautiful ceremony, perfect weather, 300 guests. Daniel's father gave a speech about legacy and family and the future. Looking back, I realized Daniel was already desperate by then. He'd embezzled nearly $800,000 from the family company. He was being pressured by creditors who didn't care about his family name. And he'd just married a woman with no assets worth stealing. I wasn't the solution to his problems. I was the cover story. The first 2 years of marriage were good. Not perfect, but good. Daniel worked long hours. I worked long hours. We had dinner together when we could, weekends when schedules aligned. Then the tension started. Daniel became secretive, paranoid. He'd check his phone constantly, delete messages before I could see them. He started having meetings that lasted until midnight, coming home smelling like cigarettes and something else I couldn't identify. When I asked about it, he got defensive. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under," he'd say. "The business is complicated. Dad's counting on me. I can't afford to fail." I tried to be supportive, tried to give him space, tried to believe that, whatever he was going through, we'd get through it together. I had no idea he was planning to disappear. Before we continue, if you're invested in this story, please hit subscribe and tell me in the comments. Have you ever been completely blindsided by someone you trusted? I read every single comment, and they truly mean the world to me. Now, back to the story. 3 months before Daniel died, his behavior changed again. He became almost peaceful, calm, like whatever had been tormenting him was finally resolved. He started planning a fishing trip, said he needed time to decompress. A weekend alone on his boat, out on the water, just him and his thoughts. His family thought it was a great idea. His father clapped him on the back and said fresh air would do him good. His mother packed him snacks for the drive to the marina. I kissed him goodbye on a Friday morning. He held me a little longer than usual. "I love you. Live," he said. "You know that, right?" I told him of course I knew that. "Just remember it," he said. "Okay, no matter what happens." I thought it was stress talking. Maybe a hint of depression. I told him we'd talk when he got back. Made him promise to call me that night. He never called. Saturday evening, his boat was found drifting 3 miles offshore. No one on board. Life jacket missing. Signs of struggle, overturned cooler, scattered equipment. The Coast Guard searched for 2 days. They found a body on Monday. Male, roughly Daniel's build, face damaged beyond recognition from the water and marine life. But the wedding ring was intact, the watch I'd given him for our anniversary. The clothes matched what he'd been wearing when he left. They asked me to identify him. I stood in that cold room, looking at what was left of the man I'd married, and I felt my world collapse. The dental records confirmed it. The DNA from his hairbrush matched. The coroner ruled it an accidental drowning. Case closed. Except nothing about it was closed at all. The life insurance policy was $2 million. Daniel had increased it 6 months before the accident. Standard practice, his agent said. Many clients update their coverage when they're approaching milestone birthdays. Daniel was turning 35 that year. It made sense. Except it didn't. Because Daniel was meticulous about finances in all the wrong ways. He never paid bills early. Never planned ahead. Never did anything standard unless someone forced him. But I was too grief-stricken to question it. The money came through. I put it in savings, unable to even think about spending my dead husband's insurance payout. 2 weeks after we scattered Daniel's ashes, Margaret had her heart attack. I was the one who found her. I'd been stopping by every day to check on her, make sure she was eating, help with the crushing weight of losing a child. She was in Daniel's childhood bedroom, time 0.3s, sitting on his old bed, holding a photo of him at 8 years old. She wasn't breathing. The doctors said her heart simply couldn't take the grief. A mother's love stretched past the breaking point. I believed them. I shouldn't have. Margaret's will was a surprise to everyone. The Whitmores had always planned to divide their estate evenly, half to Daniel or his heirs, half to his sister Catherine. Standard family arrangement. But the day before she died, Margaret had called her lawyer and made changes. She left everything to me. The house, the investment, time 0.4s, her share of Whitmore construction, personal property, jewelry, savings, all of it. $4.7 million total. Catherine was furious. Daniel's father was confused. Even the lawyer seemed uncomfortable reading it out loud. I don't understand, I said, sitting in his office a week after the funeral. Why would she do this? Patterson slid a sealed envelope across his desk. She left this for you. Asked me to deliver it after the reading. I opened it with shaking hands. Olivia, if you're reading this, then something has happened to me before I could tell you in person. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for so many things. Daniel is alive. I don't have proof yet, but I know my son. I know his patterns. I know his secrets. And I know that his death was too convenient, too perfectly timed, too clean. The insurance policy. The gambling debts he thought I didn't know about. The woman in Charleston. I've been investigating. The phone I found in his desk drawer is hidden in my jewelry box, in the blue velvet pouch with my mother's pearls. The passcode is your birthday, month, day, year. Find the truth, Olivia. You deserve to know what kind of man you married. And when you find it, don't let him win. I'm leaving everything to you because I know what he did. I know what he was planning to do, and I refuse to let him profit from destroying you. You are the daughter I should have had. I'm sorry I didn't protect you better. I love you. Margaret. I read the letter 3 times. Then I drove to Margaret's house and found the phone. The burner phone was cheap, prepaid, the kind you buy at a gas station when you don't want to be traced. I entered my birthday, 07/15/1994. It unlocked. The text messages made my stomach drop. Most were with someone saved as V, clearly a woman. The conversation spanned months. Plans, timelines, money discussions. Insurance payout processed. 2 mail orders confirmed. Stay quiet for 6 more weeks. Let things settle. Miss you. Soon we'll be together for real. My mother suspects something. Need to be careful. The final text was from 2 days before Margaret's heart attack. She found the phone. She knows. What do we do? V's response. Handle I. Time 0.4s. We're too close to stop now. Handle it. My mother-in-law had found evidence of her son's fraud. She'd confronted him somehow, or he'd realized she knew. And 2 days later, she was dead. I sat on Margaret's bedroom floor, holding that phone, and felt something cold settle into my bones. Daniel hadn't just faked his death. He'd killed his own mother. The question was what to do next. My first instinct was to call the police immediately, show them the phone, demand an investigation. But Daniel had been dead for 3 months. He'd collected $2 million in insurance money. He was somewhere far away, probably with V, waiting for things to settle before making his next move. If I went to the police with just a burner phone and a dead woman's suspicions, what would happen? They'd open an investigation. Daniel would hear about it. He'd disappear for real this time, somewhere they'd never find him. I needed more. I needed to understand exactly what he'd done, who'd helped him, and how deep this went. And I needed to do it without him knowing I was coming. I hired a private investigator named Grace Holloway, former homicide detective, 15 years on. The force. She had a reputation for solving cases other people had given up on. I showed her the phone, the letter, everything I knew. "Your husband faked his death," she said flatly. "That's insurance fraud, federal crime. But you're right, if we move too fast, he'll run." She told me we'd follow the money. The insurance payout went somewhere. The woman he was with, V, she had a life, a job, records, and whoever helped him fake the death, they knew where he was. As for Margaret, Grace's expression darkened. "Your mother-in-law's death is suspicious, but it'll be hard to prove anything. Natural causes, no signs of foul play. If he did something to her, he was careful." I told her Margaret knew Daniel was alive. She was investigating him. And then she died. Grace said she believed me, but believing and proving were different things. She picked up the phone. "Let me work this for a few weeks. I'll find Daniel, and I'll find V. Then we'll figure out how to bring them both down." If this story has you as shocked as I was, please hit that like button and tell me in the comments, what would you do if you discovered your dead spouse was actually alive? Now let me tell you about the woman who helped my husband fake his death. Grace found her in 11 days. Victoria Ashcroft, 34 years old, Charleston, South Carolina, real estate agent with a boutique firm that specialized in luxury properties. Victoria had met Daniel at a real estate conference 3 years ago. Their affair started almost immediately. She'd been his escape, his confidant, his partner in planning the perfect disappearance. "She's smart," Grace said, spreading photos across her desk. "No social media presence. Pays for everything in cash. But she made mistakes. Everyone does." The photos showed Victoria at a coffee shop, Victoria at a gym, Victoria walking into a condo building, and Daniel walking out of the same building 30 minutes later. He looked good, relaxed, happy, even, like a man who'd gotten away with everything. "They've been living in Charleston since 2 weeks after his death," Grace continued. "She bought a condo under an LLC. He's been staying there, laying low, waiting for the heat to die down." The insurance payout had been deposited into our joint account, then transferred to an offshore account in the Caymans. From there, it moved through 2 more shells before landing in an account Victoria controlled. $2 million stolen from an insurance company using my husband's fake death and my genuine grief. But there was more. Grace found evidence that Daniel had been embezzling from Whitmore Construction for years, nearly $1 million, siphoned through fake vendor accounts and inflated invoices. His father suspected something. Started asking questions about 6 months ago, right around the time Daniel increased his life insurance and started planning his fishing trip. Everything clicked. Daniel's stress, his paranoia, the pressure he claimed to be under. It wasn't the business or his father's expectations. It was the walls closing in. He'd been stealing from his own family for years. His father was getting close to discovering it. And instead of facing consequences, Daniel had chosen to fake his death, collect insurance money, and disappear with his mistress. He'd let his mother die of grief, or worse, to avoid accountability. And he thought he was going to get away with it. The harder part was what Grace found next. Margaret's death. "I can't prove murder," Grace said. "But I can prove opportunity. Daniel was in town the night she died." I went cold. Cell phone records showed Victoria's phone pinging a tower 20 miles from Margaret's house at 11 p.m. 2 hours later, it pinged a tower near the hospital where Margaret was pronounced dead. Then it disappeared, probably turned off or destroyed. Someone was here using Victoria's phone, probably Daniel, borrowing it because his phone was supposed to be at the bottom of the ocean. I thought about Margaret alone in that house, her heart, already broken from losing her son, and Daniel, her actual son, sneaking in like a thief. She found the burner phone. She knew he was alive. She was going to expose him, and she died before she could. My mother-in-law didn't die of a broken heart. She was murdered by her own child to protect his scheme. I felt sick. Then I felt rage. The kind of rage that clarifies everything. How do we get him? Grace smiled grimly. We give him exactly what he wants. Then we take it all away. The plan was simple. Daniel had come back from the dead for one reason: Margaret's will. He'd expected the estate to go to his family, where he could eventually reclaim his share through various schemes. He hadn't expected his mother to cut him out completely. He hadn't expected her to choose me. So we'd let him come to me, let him try to manipulate his way back into the money. And while he was focused on that, we'd be building a case so airtight he'd never see daylight again. He'll show up at the memorial, Grace predicted. Margaret's funeral is the perfect stage. Maximum drama, maximum leverage. He'll count on shocking everyone into compliance. She was right. Of course. The morning of Margaret's funeral, I got dressed in black and slipped the burner phone into my purse. I'd transferred all the evidence to secure locations, multiple copies, multiple people who knew where to find it if anything happened to me. Grace had arranged for 2 plainclothes officers to attend the service, just in case. I didn't know if Daniel would show up, but I was ready if he did. He showed up, walking down that aisle like he owned the place, like he hadn't spent 3 months letting everyone who loved him believe he was dead, like he hadn't potentially killed his own mother to keep his secrets. Surprise, sweetheart. I looked at him, really looked at this man I'd married, this man I'd mourned, this man I'd cried over in the shower when I thought no one could hear. He was smiling. Of course he was smiling. He thought he'd won. He thought he could walk in, shock everyone into submission, and manipulate his way to Margaret's money. He had no idea I'd spent the last week building a case that would destroy him. We need to talk, he said, privately, about the will. The chapel was silent, 50 people staring, unable to process what they were seeing. Catherine was still on the floor where she'd fainted. Daniel's father looked like he might be having a heart attack of his own. I stood up slowly, smoothed my black dress, took a breath. Actually, Daniel, I think we should talk right here, in front of everyone. His smile flickered. Liv, come on. This is a family matter. I reached into my purse and pulled out the burner phone. Is it? Because I think it's a criminal matter. And these people deserve to know what kind of man you really are. Daniel's eyes locked on the phone. His face went pale. Where did you get that? Your mother found it right before she died. I let that sink in. She knew. Daniel. She knew you were alive. She knew about Victoria. She knew about the insurance fraud. And she was going to expose you. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Daniel's father pushed himself up from his pew. What is she talking about? Daniel, what is this? Daniel held up his hands. Dad, she's confused. The grief has affected her mind. I can explain everything. Can you explain the $2 million in insurance money you stole? I held up the phone. Can you explain the text messages with your girlfriend Victoria? Can you explain how she was in this town the night your mother died? The color drained completely from Daniel's face. Can you explain? I continued, my voice steady and cold. Why you let your own mother die thinking her only son was dead? Why you let her grief destroy her while you were living in a condo in Charleston with the woman you've been cheating with for 3 years. Catherine had recovered enough to sit up. Daniel, what is she saying? She's lying. But his voice cracked. She's making this up because she wants the money. The money your mother left to me. Time. 0.3s, I interrupted. Because she knew exactly what you'd done. She left me a letter, Daniel. She told me everything. And she asked me to find the truth. I pulled out Margaret's letter and held it up. This is your mother's handwriting. Her last words. She knew you were alive. She knew you were a fraud. And she wanted to make sure you never profited from what you did to this family. Daniel lunged for the letter. One of the plainclothes officers stepped into his path. Sir, I'm going to need you to step back. Daniel froze. His eyes darted between the officer, me, and the door. Daniel Whitmore. The second officer moved forward. You're under arrest for insurance fraud and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. The handcuffs clicked shut. Daniel started struggling, shouting that this was a mistake, that I was framing him, that his family would get him out of this. But his family wasn't moving to help. His father sank back into the pew, head in his hands. Catherine stared at her brother like she'd never seen him before. And Margaret lay in her casket, silent witness to her son's final downfall. Time? 0.4s. Before we continue to what happened next, if you're on the edge of your seat, please hit subscribe. I promise you, the ending is worth it. Now, let me tell you about what we found when we dug deeper. The arrest at the funeral was just the beginning. With Daniel in custody, the investigation exploded. Grace's evidence was turned over to federal prosecutors. The FBI got involved because of the insurance fraud's interstate elements. And Victoria Ashcroft was picked up in Charleston 48 hours later. She tried to run. She'd seen the news coverage. Daniel's dramatic arrest at his own mother's funeral made national headlines, and immediately started packing. She made it as far as the Atlanta airport before federal marshals intercepted her. In custody, Victoria folded almost immediately. Whatever loyalty she'd felt for Daniel evaporated the moment she realized she was facing serious prison time. She told them everything. The affair that started 3 years ago, Daniel's gambling debts, the plan they'd hatched together to fake his death and start over somewhere new. The body they'd used wasn't random. It was a homeless man named William Porter, 52 years old, struggling with addiction, last seen at a shelter 3 days before Daniel's accident. Victoria had lured him, with the promise of cash for odd jobs. Daniel had done the rest. They'd killed an innocent man to make the death look convincing. I sat in the prosecutor's office when they told me, and I felt something break inside me. William Porter had a sister who'd been looking for him for years, a niece who remembered him from before the addiction took hold. A life that mattered, even if the world had forgotten him. Daniel had stolen that life to fund his escape, used a human being as a prop in his scheme. The man I'd married was a murderer. But that wasn't the worst of it. Margaret's death was reopened as a potential homicide. The investigation revealed that Daniel had indeed visited his mother the night she died. Victoria's phone records placed him there. And when they searched the Charleston condo, they found something damning, a bottle of digoxin, a heart medication that can be fatal in large doses. Margaret's toxicology had shown elevated levels of digoxin. At the time, it was attributed to her existing heart condition. But she hadn't been prescribed digoxin. She was on a different cardiac medication entirely. Someone had given it to her. Someone who needed her to die before she could expose what she knew. The prosecution added murder charges. First degree. Time saw 0.4s. Premeditated. Both for William Porter and for Margaret Whitmore, Daniel's own mother. He'd killed her to steal money that was never going to be his anyway, because she'd already decided to cut him out. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so devastating. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I testified. Victoria testified. having taken a plea deal for reduced charges in exchange for her cooperation. Grace presented the financial evidence. The forensic team explained the digoxin, the cell phone records, the body identification discrepancies that should have raised red flags but didn't. Daniel's defense tried everything. He claimed Victoria had acted alone, claimed the digoxin was planted, claimed I had manipulated his mother into changing the will. None of it worked. The jury was out for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Insurance fraud, wire fraud, murder of William Porter, murder of Margaret Whitmore, conspiracy across the board. The judge sentenced him to life without parole. I watched them lead him away. This man I'd loved, married, mourned. This man who'd held me on our wedding day and promised forever. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at anyone. He just walked, head down, shoulders slumped, into the rest of his life behind bars. The aftermath took months to sort through. Margaret's estate remained with me, as she'd intended. I used some of it to establish a scholarship in her name, supporting first-generation college students in our community. She would have liked that. I also created a fund for William Porter's family. It couldn't bring him back, but it could help his sister and niece rebuild something from the tragedy. The life insurance company sued Daniel, Victoria, and everyone connected to the fraud. The money was recovered eventually, though it took years of legal wrangling. Catherine and I became unlikely friends. She'd lost her mother and her brother in the span of weeks, one to death, one to the revelation that he was a monster. We helped each other through it. Daniel's father never recovered. He'd spent his whole life building Whitmore Construction for his son to inherit. Learning that son had been stealing from him for years, that he'd killed his own mother, that everything about him was a lie. It broke something fundamental in him. He died 18 months after the trial. Heart failure. Officials. Time 0.4s. Heartbreak. Really. Daniel didn't attend the funeral. He wasn't allowed. People ask me sometimes how I didn't know, how I lived with a man capable of such things and never suspected. I don't have a good answer for that. Daniel was charming, careful. He wore his mask so well that even his own mother didn't see through it until the very end, and she'd known him his whole life. I was with him for 7 years. I thought I knew everything about him, his favorite foods, his childhood memories, the way he laughed at bad movies. I knew the surface. I never saw what was underneath. Maybe that's the scariest part. Not that monsters exist, but that they look exactly like everyone else. They say the right things, make the right gestures, build the right life. And underneath it all, there's nothing but hunger and calculation. I was lucky, in a way. Margaret saved me. Even in death, she protected me. She left me evidence. She left me resources. She left me the tools to destroy the man who'd destroyed her. I think about her every day. About the kind of mother she was, the kind of woman who loved her son, despite everything but chose justice over family loyalty when it mattered. I hope I would be that brave. I hope I never have to find out. Last month, I visited Margaret's grave, brought white lilies, her favorite, sat on the bench her family had installed and watched the sunset over the cemetery. I got him, I said out loud. He's never getting out. He's never hurting anyone else. The wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a bird called out. I like to think she heard me. I like to think she finally has peace. 3 years after the trial, I got a letter from the prison. Daniel had written to me, requesting a visit. Said he wanted to apologize. Said he'd found religion. Said he needed closure. I read the letter twice. Then I burned it. Some people don't deserve closure. Some people don't deserve forgiveness. Some people made their choices and have to live with the consequences. Daniel chose to fake his death, chose to steal, chose to kill an innocent man, chose to murder his own mother. He chose every single step that led him to that cell. I don't owe him anything. My grandmother used to say that you never really know someone until you see them cornered. When the pressure's on, when there's nowhere left to hide, that's when you see who they truly are. Daniel showed me who he was in that chapel, walking toward me with that smile, thinking he could manipulate his way back into my life. But Margaret showed me who she was too. A mother who loved her son, but loved justice more. A woman who protected her daughter-in-law even from beyond the grave. I try to be more like her every day. The money from her estate has done good things. The scholarship, the victim fund, the charitable foundation in her name. Time 04s. Margaret's legacy isn't her son's crimes. It's the lives she touched, the people she helped, the daughter she chose. She chose me, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure that choice meant something. Thank you so much for watching. If this story moved you, please hit that subscribe button and leave a comment telling me, have you ever had someone protect you in ways you didn't discover until later? More of my most gripping stories are already on your screen. Click one now and don't miss the best part. You will love it. See you in the next one.